All right, everyone. It is 10 o'clock, so I will go ahead and get us started. Good morning. I am Taylor Post, Swiftland's office manager, and I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Tech to Connect with Users in a Post-Pandemic World, and today's presenter, Diana Silvera. Diana Silvera is a librarian and president of Novare Library Services, where she works with libraries to develop, implement, and utilize technology effectively. Previously, she was employed at the Tampa Bay Library Consortium and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. She has an MLIS from the UNC Greensboro and a BS in psychology from Catawba College. Her book, Library Technology Planning for Today and Tomorrow, published by Rowman and Littlefield in 2018, is now available. Please welcome Diana Silvera and enjoy her webinar this morning.
Thank you, Taylor. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I know, almost happy Friday. You're right, Christine. I hope everybody is well, and I thank all of you for joining me today. Hopefully today will be a fun and interactive webinar. So the more you use that chat box, the more all of us are going to learn. I think in this past year, all of us have learned so much. We have taken our meetings and our virtual experiences to a different level than we may be used to. So please feel free to put in that chat box. That did not work for me. That was a wonderful idea. We found this was a great thing to do. This other site does what you're talking about, all of that kind of stuff. I think the more we chat in that box, the more everybody will learn today. At the end of this presentation, I will have a link to the slides, and Taylor will have those as well, so you can have access to this. So don't feel like you have to jot a bunch of notes down during today's session. So we're going to talk about online programming, connecting to users, and team management and remote working, and how we can do all of this effectively. So lots to cover today. Hopefully we're going to really push Adobe Connect to a different level today, so hopefully we don't break it. I have my fingers crossed on that. So hopefully this will be fun. So before, we're going to talk about a ton of tech today. So before you do anything with technology, there's a couple things to think about. Can it help you connect in a meaningful way? If it's just technology for technology's sake, you want to bring in a new toy into the session, into a program or into a meeting, and it really doesn't serve a purpose, it's a distraction and it's not going to help at all. It's actually going to maybe backfire and do the opposite for you. So really think about, what do I want to achieve in this meeting or in this program? And then what technology is there to help us bridge that? And I think that's really the key to do. And some of this stuff will translate into face-to-face stuff as we move back. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are still only virtual in your meetings and programs, or how many of you are starting to sort of bring back live stuff at your library? Sharon says she's totally virtual still. Ronald's just virtual. Joanna's saying planning for August. Kimberly says they're going to bring back live classes at the college, mostly virtual. They're starting, Sanibel's mostly virtual. We're starting to talk about bringing it back. We're starting to have our meeting room meetings now. Maria, I feel like that would be really weird right now to sit with other people in a meeting. I did that about a month ago for a county meeting I had to go to, and it's a public meeting, so they're not allowed to be online. And it was just the weirdest feeling in the room, but that we each had like a 6-foot desk that was 8 feet apart from each other. It was very formal feeling. Some limited stuff at FCCJ. We're still virtual for library sponsored, but we're getting a nudge. And I think, by the end of the summer, we'll be moving back to the reality. I read someplace that they think by July 1st, we'll be back to normal. And I'm putting all of my money on that because I really want that to be true. So I think what we're going to talk about today, Sharon's saying they want to bring back, the Florida DMV wants to bring back their mobile unit, and we'll have first live program in July. Wow, okay. So I think, and I hope everything that we talk about, I don't think we're going to go completely back to where we were. People like virtual stuff. I think we have shown that. Our users who maybe we thought will never go online for a program, they're seniors, they're teenagers, they're not going to want to do online programs. They have proved us wrong in this past year. So maybe they prefer sometimes physical events, but I think that virtual is not going to go away. It opens the doors. I've been reading a lot of articles about, from people with disabilities that say, like, I hadn't been able to go to a library program in 10 years, and now I'm part of the library, and I hope they don't take that away. And I think that's something important for us to consider. Maybe not everything is virtual, but some sort of hybrid, maybe some live, some virtual, some hybrid programming. So none of the stuff we're going to talk about today will go away. And I think it's sort of some great things that we can look at. The next thing to think about is, what is the learning curve? If you have to spend 20 minutes of a 30-minute program explaining how something will work, that's not the technology for that meeting. Maybe it's just too complicated. Maybe the audience is wrong. Maybe the software is wrong. So how many steps are involved, and what it's going to take for people to do? I think that you really have to think through that. And if you're bringing in a new technology, you really sort of have to test it, and not test it with yourself, but test it with people that are going to be in your audience. Maybe you have a super user in your group, and you can say, hey, Bob, would you mind if I log in the day before the program with you, and we just kind of test this really quick to see if it makes sense to you? Kind of really figuring out if it's a staff meeting or a committee meeting. Kind of maybe you could have a little more techie than a public program. Ronald's saying we offer pre-runs with library presenters, and Ronald, that is so wonderful. I love to practice ahead of time, and I do presentations sometimes 3 times a week, but you cannot do enough pre-runs. It's amazing to me how one day my audio is fine, the next day my audio is not right. It depends on everybody's setups, and especially if you're going to use some kind of tool, to make sure it works properly in the software so that you can have that plan B ready. And oops, hit that little button too many times. What are the technical requirements? Are you asking people to have a separate device? Do they need to be running Chrome on their computers? Do they need to have log into Google ahead of time? What are your requirements ahead of time? And if it's going to be something complicated, you might need to tell them ahead of time, like, hey, make sure you log into this software beforehand. Make sure you create an account. Make sure you upgrade. I recently did a Zoom meeting, and we were going to use breakout rooms. And breakout rooms work amazing if you have the newer versions of Zoom. If you have not updated your Zoom in a year, they don't work right. The host has to assign them to rooms, which can be very cumbersome in a big group. So, we were sending out emails for the week or two before, like, upgrade your Zoom. And I will say, still was not 100%. But these are the things that you have to kind of think through beforehand. And what are you going to do when people don't have that? When they say, I don't have an account, I can't log in, all of that stuff becomes an issue. So how can we enhance online learning? So, of course, Zoom, all of us know Zoom by now. I was just reading this article, and I've been frustrated with Zoom a lot, as I'm sure all of you have, about what the company went through. It was their chief person engineer. I think that was her title. And it was how just visionary she was. Like, their whole company was going virtual. They hired like some amazing amount of staff and grew their software exponentially, and never really crashed their software in that whole year. How they did all of that was pretty amazing. It was a great article. I think it was in Wired magazine, possibly. But anyway, so Zoom, we all maybe had heard of it before quarantine, but now it is just almost the word, a verb. Let's Zoom today. Social media, we can always connect to people using live or pre-recorded conversations. Teams, If you're in a Microsoft environment, GoToMeeting, Adobe Connect, there's all these different possibilities. So what are the pros and cons, and why would you choose one over the other? Because we have all of these options, and really it's what you want out of the meeting. So if you want, for example, this session, I want to talk to you. I want to hear what Christine and Elizabeth and Marie and Sharon are saying, and Ronald. I want to talk to you during the presentation. So that is one of the core things I need to look at for that software. So now we're talking about Zoom, we're talking about Adobe Connect, we're talking about Microsoft Teams, or GoToWebinar, or GoToMeeting. We're talking about one of these things that has an integrated chat that works well. So, you know, people don't have that software naturally, so you have to send them a link, they have to connect to it, you have to post that link on your website, you have to do something like that to get people to connect. There's a lot of different settings in all of these, so you could, in fact, I think there's a session we're going to have towards the end of the summer where we look at the settings and some of this stuff, but you can make them as open or as top down as you want. So you can have the presenter where questions are submitted by Q&A, and the presenter presents, and that's all that happens, where the participants are hidden, so nobody even knows who's in the workshop except for the hosts. You can have it wide open where everybody can unmute themselves and talk and have this whole experience where everybody can screen share. And you're going to find different meetings work different ways. So of course, if I'm having a committee meeting or the department meeting for my library, probably that last option is better. I want everybody to talk. I want everybody to interact. If I'm having something that's an open forum with the public, I might want to have it a little more locked down. So those are really better for interacting. If you want to have more widely available, easily available, push to your users content, social media might be better, but it's harder to have that conversation. I've gone to many Facebook Live sessions, and I always feel like it's more of a viewing. Maybe I'm talking, maybe the attendees are having a conversation, but the person presenting is not as much of a part of it. They're sort of a little separate because it's hard to do that during the conversation. You almost need multiple devices. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of those are going to be better for that sort of pushing content out where you don't want to interact quite as much. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? So for meetings, and these are that smaller group area, yeah, good. Christine is saying good for programs with minors. Yes, if you don't want to have to worry about any kind of stuff like that with minors, those sort of social media things where you're pushing people content and you're not as interactive is a little bit better. You don't have to get into sort of the worries of legalities with kids and policies. So if you're having more of a meeting, especially now, because we are all burnt out. I'm going to make that blanket statement for all of us. Taylor was telling me about her vacation and I was so jealous. I think that's a wonderful thing. We all are tired and everybody is stressed. Start with how are you? Is everybody okay? Especially if it's your team, it's the group of people that you work with often, start there. Have an agenda and be respectful of people's time. Everybody is super stretched. We're trying to reopen. We're trying to do our regular job. We're trying to do a virtual job. We're trying to do all of this stuff. So make sure you have an agenda and you stick to that agenda and you stick to the time. If the meeting is scheduled for 30 minutes, it ends in 30 minutes. It doesn't matter if you didn't finish. If it's an hour, it's an hour. You have to stick to that agenda to respect people's time. If, we've all been into face-to-face or virtual meetings that never end. And you're like, oh, they're not productive. They drag on and on. The person maybe leading the meeting thinks they're great, but everybody else is being dragged down. So you want to really be respectful of that. And cameras are an interesting thing. Cameras force attentiveness. You can't really multitask. I can't play with my cat while my camera's on. I'm focused. I'm not checking my phone. Um, I don't have myself on mute and my camera off, and I've gone to make myself lunch. So cameras kind of do that. It also connects us better. It's amazing how much better I feel when I'm looking at someone's face when I'm talking to them. I feel like I'm having more of a conversation. It brings us back and it connects us again. And especially for remote, that's a wonderful thing. But cameras can also cause fatigue and they can cause stress. So you can have camera optional meetings. You can have some meetings are camera on, you can have some camera off. And you can play with that and see what works for the specific group. I've been to meetings where the person gets on and the first thing they say is, I've had a lot of meetings today. We're not going to put the camera on. I hope that's okay with everybody. If you want to choose to put yours on, that's fine, but I'm not. And I think that's okay. I think it really depends. And sometimes it just depends on how my hair looks, if I'm ready for a camera or not. So have that conversation with people and do that. If utilize the tools of the software. Before we're going to get into third-party tools and really jump into them and play around with them, but software tools within all of these softwares have gotten very robust. So there's screen share like we're doing. Well, right now we're sharing a file, but you can screen share, which we're going to do in a little bit, which means that you can see my whole screen and anything I do that you see. We can watch videos. We can do all of that kind of stuff. We can do polls. So for example, I'm going to do a quick little poll. Hopefully this is the right poll. So hopefully that popped up on your computer. Yep, I see people making choices. So I'm going to broadcast results. So hopefully you can see that as well. Sharon said, I was on a Zoom yesterday and a guest said if I knew we'd be on camera, I would have put on makeup. I know, I'm waiting for those. I don't know if you remember the Jetsons. Judy had a mask that she would hold over her face for meetings. So she was fully ready for them. That's what I feel I need some days. Some days I'm like, oh, I wasn't ready for this. And I've learned to put makeup on in 20 seconds sometimes when everybody's turning cameras on and I realize I'm not ready for it. So you can see right here this quiz. I see everybody's doing this. We have a lot of nonfiction readers in this group. So if we were in a club or something, we can be picking the book we want. We can have a quick little poll about what we want to do next. Kids love this kind of stuff. This is really, all of these little things like this are called micro interactions. And these interactions make you stop because all of us are sort of lean back and I know that I'm just amazing and you guys are listening to my every word, but more likely you're leaned back in your chair and you're, you're tempted. You're like, oh, I wonder if I got any emails. Should I check my email? I wonder if what am I going to do about this one project I'm working on? There's a lot going on in our brains. And the more I just talk, the more your brain is going to tune out. So changing slides every couple seconds helps because I change the view and your eyes kind of pull back into the session to see what happened on the screen because something changed. Polls where I'm making you actually do something. If I'm making you actually participate and we're seeing those kind of results, we are going to be more interactive and I'm going to be more engaged in the meeting overall. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. Only 5 of you are mystery thriller readers like myself, but that's okay. So, but it's a fun way to do that. I'm gonna, oh shoot, hold on. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. That is the, I apologize. I am sorry about that. I went to hit hide and I hit maximize. So the more we do that kind of stuff, the more we're going to do it. Whiteboarding, again, it gets people paying attention. What is she drawing? What is happening on the screen? So I start to pay attention. And now, Q&A versus chat, what's best for your meeting? I would decide ahead of time and disable Q&A if you're not going to use it, if you can do that in your software. Most software will allow you to just turn it off if you're not going to use it. So chat has the advantage of everybody sees what's happening in here. We're all kind of talking together. It gives that collaborative feel. You can see when Bob has asked a question, even if I haven't answered it. And maybe I've seen a lot of classes where, Mary answers Bob's question and they have a whole side conversation in there. You can, message people individually so you can kind of, hey, that was a really good idea. Maybe we should implement that. We can have that collaborative feel. If you have a certain number of people, though, this becomes very cumbersome. As a speaker, it becomes distracting because it's really hard to keep up with it sometimes. So if it's over a certain amount of people or you're worried about confidentiality, if you don't, it's more of a formal class, you're doing a BI instruction session, or you have kids, maybe you don't want everybody in that actual chat room and you want a Q&A. So people submit the questions and you can kind of go through the questions and answer them. And I've seen that a lot with more public meetings where the speaker can kind of curate the questions, because a lot of times 15 people might ask the same question if you have 100 people in the room. So that way, it's not cluttering it up and you can kind of go through it. So again, that's going to depend on the group and how you want the meeting to run. And I think that's the most important of all of this, is you have to sit back and imagine, what is the outcome and how do I think this is going to go? Do I just have a lot to tell you and I want you to listen to every word I say? That's going to be a very different meeting than, I really want to know all of your opinions and I want you to collaborate with me during this meeting or this program. So if you are doing programs for the public, if you are doing something that allows for interaction, interact. If you're letting people chat, if you're letting people comment, if you're doing Facebook Live, even if you're not the person responding, somebody should be there to talk in the chat rooms and talk in the chat box. That's why a moderator is always sometimes a really good idea. It could be a team player that's totally right on board with that. The camera should be really focused on the speaker. If you're going to have a camera on, it really needs to be angled and focused, and really look at what's going on in the background, the noise, the action back there, because it's distracting if things are happening in the background. I mean, we all like to look at everybody's bookshelves. We know that. That's like a given. So really look at your bookshelf ahead of time and make sure that it's the books that you want everyone to think you're reading, and anything like that that you want to do. If you're doing a hybrid meeting, those are a little more tricky. You want to make sure the virtual attendees are not left behind. I have done a couple hybrid things where I feel like they forgot the camera was on and everyone's having side conversations in the room and I can't hear them because the mic's not picking up the side conversation. And I just feel like I'm not part of the group. I'm this separate entity, and it doesn't give me as much value. So really think that through. So, you don't have, one of the great things about all of our software now, and you think about, Ronald's asking if we recommend solid color backgrounds. I don't think it necessarily matters. I would focus on a lot less stuff. You can definitely do green screens, as we're going to mention, where you can just kind of blend out the background. Some of the software now has the blur function, exactly, Christina, which kind of just grays out the background a little bit. They can tell you're in an office, but they can't see your printer and your paperwork behind you. Those are really good for that kind of stuff. My husband's company, they're totally different. They're not library, so they're just a different level than us. They sent a little, I'm making hand gestures like you can read, pop-ups, like, with the company logo for them to put behind them for meetings, so that they always had the company logo with the colors behind them when they're meeting with customers, which I thought was like, it was like, wow, when that came out to our house. So I do think really you can consider it. I mean, I've had some great sessions where it was just people stood kind of behind a wall. I would look at what's behind you. You don't want a hallway behind you. You don't want to be doing the program in a lot in the library and having people walking behind you. I think that's more important than an actual solid color background. So you don't have all of this software, and I think about what would have happened if COVID happened 10 years ago. I don't think we would have been in such a great place. Um, Technology has really become inexpensive and efficient. You don't really need expensive equipment to be able to do a lot of stuff. There's some tools that will help you and make things easier for you. A tripod, if it's just you and you have to, and you're using your phone because your phone or a mobile device because of where you are filming. Having a tripod is a definite. You need something to keep it steady. Holding the phone in front of your face, it's just distracting. A microphone to make sure your audio is clear. A lot of microphones will do a really good job of sort of pulling out the background noises for you. You might want to have a green screen. I attend a lot of sessions about how to do webinars, and they always talk about standing up and moving around during your webinar, and I think I will not be doing that, but I can move my arms perfectly well while sitting in my seat. But a podium, if you want to have sort of that more formal look, there's things like ManyCam where you can actually have different camera angles coming in, so you have sort of that movie, news kind of look where it's right straight on, it's to the side. If you're doing a lot of hands-on document cameras, if you're doing crafting with people online, those are kind of cameras that are hang up and they look down to the desk so you can use both hands. I didn't know about those when we did the Makerpalooza. I wish I did, because it would have been a lot easier to do some of that crafting stuff with one of those kind of cameras. And whatever you're going to use, especially if you're doing story times or something like that, really think through before the experience starts what you're going to need, so you're not like looking around trying to grab stuff. That kind of creates that disorderly feel. And any kind of video, you need to make sure closed captioning is available, because first of all, even on recorded sessions, studies have shown 42% of students, this is not deaf, this is all students, closed captioning help maintain focus. 85% of people watch videos on mute. I know I do. If it doesn't have closed captions, I don't want to watch it because I don't want to listen to the audio most of the time. It actually increases discoverability because the search engine optimization is better. It's the law. So really think that through, and those are available on every platform. Sometimes you have to kind of dig around to find the permissions, but they're there. This is a whole list of different, you can look at this later, ways you can turn on closed captioning. And even not on this list is Google Chrome now just will close caption for you. So even if whatever you have doesn't caption, if you open up Chrome and get it set up right, if you have the audio going through Chrome, it will actually do the captioning for you. Oh, okay, that did not transfer into Adobe Connect. Animated videos are a great way to make pre-recorded stuff if you're not comfortable with you. Sometimes I don't want to be on camera. I know it's like you're laughing because you think she does webinars all the time. Of course she's okay with it. There is nothing, I totally act like a neurotic person when you put a camera on me and tell me to start speaking. I get really nervous. I don't know why. That's just how it is. So creating things like Spark, Animoto, Canva, iMovie, where I can create stuff with graphics and not myself, I'm actually more productive in that for short little things that I'm doing as a pre-recording. So those are all great options. They all have free and paid versions of them. A couple more ways you can do pre-recorded video. If you're not going to be live, if you're not going to have interaction, there is no reason to be live. I'm just going to say that. If you are not encouraging people to talk with you, there's no reason that you're live. You can pre-record that and release it at a certain time, because the advantage of live is that interactive part. So TechSmith has a bunch of stuff. You can pre-record in Zoom. You can just have a meeting by yourself and record it. Google Meet will also do that, and Google Meet does do closed captioning, so you can have that on the bottom of your screen. You can record a PowerPoint with audio. You can use your phone or webcam or anything like that. So lots of options for pre-recording video. If you do record, edit, this OpenShot video editor is probably one of my favorite ways to edit video. That's that second link, and that's what you're looking at right there. That's a beautiful video of me in 1988 there that I was editing. I couldn't take my braces out, but you know, it's got the hair. So take a moment, edit, take out those little awkward transitions, cut out the beginning where you're kind of floundering to get started, cut the end where it's a clean ending, bring it together, shorten it up, make it look a little more crisp. You can also work on getting the audio, so a dog barking in the background, the doorbell, patrons screaming in the background, all of that stuff that happens unexpectedly, you can actually work out of your video so it's not in the final product. If you are going to live stream, there are options beyond just using Facebook Live or YouTube Live. Of course, those just work. OBS is an open broadcaster software. You can record in it and you can go live. I really like that software. It's open source, so it's completely free. You can have like where the screen, your PowerPoint is going and you're on the bottom of your PowerPoint. So you can overlap scenes on it. So you can have different things. You can have your library logo over it. You can have video playing. You can have yourself. You can have all of that. You see stuff like OBS used a lot in YouTube videos and things like that, where the person playing the game head is on the bottom of the screen and things like that. Streamlabs also offers a lot of stuff free, has a really great free live streaming software. And you can use them to stream to multiple formats. So if you wanted to stream to YouTube, Facebook, all at the same time, you could do it through there. And 360 video. So 360 videos, especially as people are starting to come back, they might have a little bit of fear. They know things are different. They want to know what's going on, a little tour of what's going on at the library. Maybe it's not the worst idea. And 360 gives me that full feeling. I can see everything that's going on within the library. On a more fun sort of way is bringing games, gamifying your sessions. So Jeopardy Labs is totally free. You create your own little board and then you have teams and it just works like Jeopardy. So it's a really fun, engaging way to make a personal, this is one I made for libraries. I have one for our family get together that's like, how well do you know? And it's each person. There's a whole mess of different stuff you can do with it and it's all free of charge. You can just create it. This Flippity is this down here. You can make a bunch of little simple games. This is, I guess Hangman is not a thing anymore. So this is a newer version. It's where you take parts of the snowman as you try and guess the word. So these kind of interactive stuff make the meeting a little more fun. Just like that poll where it pulled you back in. So we're going to look at this one in just a second. We're going to go back and look at it. But Classroom Screen, I really like it because you can make your desktop, it's a web version, it doesn't save anything. You make it full screen so it's your whole desktop. You can embed your slides. I can have, I can have whiteboards, I can have texting, I can have a whole mess of different stuff going on my boards, on my desktop, and we can all interact together with all of that. If you're doing like kids story times, I found this site that I absolutely love. It's Go Noodle. It's just like fun little dance videos. They say it's got adult stuff. I did not find the adult stuff very compelling, but the kids stuff was a lot of fun. It's free of charge. You just go in there and you can have a little 2-minute video in the beginning of your story time, or the end can be crazy dance time and put on that music and everybody can do something fun, but it gets people moving. You probably could do it in some adult or teen stuff, but that's a little not as likely. None of my videos came through. So Spatial, Meet in VR, Virbela, and the list just keeps growing, is bring your meetings to virtual reality. We talked about how putting the camera on can make it more interactive, that I can see who you are we can see each other's faces. I was doing a live meeting with a group in California earlier this week, and we had a bunch of them have live cameras, and it just made the meeting so much more fun because I could see their faces when they saw a cool resource or we talked about something, or I could see that they were shaking their heads in disagreement with me, all of that kind of stuff. Virtual reality takes that to the next level, and you put the device on your head and you feel like you're there. You have to kind of make sure that everybody can do this, that it's not limiting. Things like spatial are nice because people can run it on their desktop if they don't have VR, but that VR component really takes it to another level, and you can sit around and move things together. You can build things. You can look at a presentation. You can go to shows together. You can do all sorts of stuff together, and it really feels like you're there because the person's just talking, and when they're moving their hands, their avatars are moving. So this is really an area that's exploding right now. So definitely the software is in constant flux because there's just a new product every day. My husband's company had a huge meeting. It's usually a conference, and they had this software where people could move their avatars to different areas in the room, and you would talk to the avatars you were close to. So you could, wander over and have a conversation with Bob and Mike, and then I could wander over to the left of my screen and Sarah and Mary are there, and we could have a conversation, and I can't hear the other conversations. You can only hear what's right there with you. So lots of fun stuff like that is coming down the line. You can communicate through the web with chatbots and email. You want to make everything interactive, and that's really the key to all of that. Moving past PowerPoint, if you can, Prezi is amazingly powerful and so much better than it used to be. Prezi was something I used to just dismiss out of hand, but I've seen some amazing presentations in Prezi lately, so it's worth revisiting. You can actually bring into your PowerPoint into it, and it will help you kind of create that, and you can move from there. But again, it creates that micro interaction feel where you click on stuff and things are changing on the screen, so it becomes more engaging. Helping users, moving past just talking to them on the phone, GoToAssist. If you're a bigger system, it does cost money, but if you're going to do it a lot, it's worth it. Google Meet, Zoom, having these kind of rooms available where you can actually meet up with people. I was in a meeting the other day, and I'm trying to think where, but the user said they were letting students make appointments with the librarians, and they were bringing other students in. They were sharing their links, so 4 students would show up instead of 1 because everybody actually wants to talk to the librarian, and they're missing that interaction, and they need help. And things like Zoom, you can really have that conversation. You can screen share. You can work out that problem. And if you're having a research issue or you can't figure out how to do something, that is much easier sometimes than that might take 5 minutes, where it might take 20 minutes on a phone call or 100 emails back and forth to figure out why the book won't download. So I see a question coming in, so I'm just going to hold for a second, but we're going to switch over to screen sharing in a second here. So surveying and feedback. Leslie's saying Microsoft Teams is good for screen sharing. It is, and it works seamlessly. I have never had a problem with Microsoft Teams. The person needs to have, can use the web-based if they don't have Microsoft, I believe, and come in as anonymous. So getting feedback, again, that sort of working with the person. There's Kahoot it's kind of the one that's known right now, but it does cost money. So I wanted to show you 2 that you can do for free. So we're going to pop over to a live session really quick. And if you have a phone handy and have the ability to play along, it will be fun. If not, you can always use the chat box. Just 1 second. It's a little, okay. Hopefully this works. So can everybody see my screen? You should be looking at, it's sort of the admin version of Slido. Okay, great. So I'm going to put this in the chat box. Oh, I already see people doing results. So I'm going to click view results, and this is what you would share. So as people type in the results, my screen is going to start to change. So if anyone else wants to participate, you go to slido.com. And then it's going to ask you to enter that code. So you go ahead and type in that code 121044. So, so you can see as people are typing in the results, they're showing up. I don't know why that one, the big screen is not working. And you can see multiple votes for it. So we can create that interaction. We can do different things. We're going to stop this one now and start a second poll, which should pop up automatically on your phone. How well do you understand this topic so far on a scale to 1 to 5? Thank you. Lots of 5s, or one person voted 5. So you can do scales. You can do things like that. You can do and then you can also do open text polls. So you can do all of that kind of stuff. You just create a poll here and move from there. A second version of this is Poll Anywhere. And Poll Anywhere is, let me grab, hold it really quickly, the stuff to put in the thing if you want to take it into the chat box. So again, it sort of works the same way. People can follow along, they can see the responses. One of the things I like about this, even in in-person meetings, is it kind of takes away the, if I don't want to be the one who raises my hand, I can actually kind of just participate in this. So I want to just show you that classroom screen really quick that we kind of looked at. Again, lots of different options, and you can just kind of click and drag. It's really easy to use, and it doesn't seem to have any kind of fees attached to it. So I can get rid of stuff if it's too busy. I can move stuff around my screen. I can start a countdown. So lots of different stuff that you can interact in a meeting with. You can embed slides, YouTube videos, your webcam, or images. And you can have multiple ones of those running at the same time. Okay, I'm going to click stop sharing and go back. Anybody have any questions about those? So they're really fun ways. I wouldn't have all of them, and I would use them in a limited capacity, but they're really easy to get started. They're really fun to get users sort of excited. Poll everywhere you can actually do where people are graded. So, by how quick they respond, so you can do trivia contests and stuff like that, and it will have a leaderboard so you can see who's winning. So you can make it really a fun interactive session versus you just kind of doing the talking. And you can pause it along the way if you wanted to talk and explain what you're doing. So, connecting with tech is more than just online meetings. So I just want to go back and kind of take a step back and talk about email for a minute because, email, email, I have so much email. I can't nobody wants email. People want email. There's a reason mailing lists and email is just on the rise. It's because it's effective. It waits for people. So where I post something on social media, and if you hadn't logged into social media for 24 hours, you probably will never see my post. Those who do, maybe there's a 10%, maybe a 5% engagement. Maybe if something was really popular, that's different. But for the most part, it's a fairly low engagement level. And that's of the people that follow you, right? That's not even all of your users. So if you had 10,000 users and you have 1,000 people following on social media, which is a good number, of that 1,000, only 5% saw your post. Okay, now we're only talking hundreds of people, not even hundreds of people. That's math, and I'm not going to do that. But it's a really small number. So an email, on the other hand, I send an email, it goes to your inbox. It doesn't matter if you don't check your inbox for 6 years, it's sitting there waiting for you when you come in. So most emails are open if they're going to be open within 48 hours. People will go in and they'll check their email and they'll either delete it or they'll open it. Libraries I talk to, though, the engagement level for emails can sometimes be close to 100%. So again, you're talking about the people who have subscribed and are inputting, but the industry standard is about 14% engagement overall for email marketing. But that's still a lot more people than maybe you were reaching on social media. To welcome people, celebrate users on your email. If you use one of those mailing, Constant Contact, MailPoet, MailChimp, MadMimi, any of those kind of email mailing lists, they will let you send welcome emails. That means when someone subscribes, they get an email welcoming them. You think about when you sign up for an email at a business and you get sort of that 10% off or something like that. You can send a welcome when they get a new card that explains your services to them. What is happening at the library? I think we need to be better at communicating that. The libraries, we are in flux. We're stressed because we're in flux. Our users sometimes don't know what is happening. Am I able to go into the library? Are they still counting the number of people? What's the current mask situation? What are the programs, outside or inside? Is this curbside still available? There's so many questions, especially if I'm not a super user. It can be like, I don't know, I'm just not going to deal with it. We're starting back programming, letting people know about that. Are you going to have registration? Are there certain COVID criteria that your library is going to adhere to? What resources can they be using right now? And what services are available? Because not all of our services are available and we might be launching new ones. So putting all of that in email to users will be really effective. And along with that is updating our website, making sure all of this information gets to our website, because our website is our virtual branch. There are people who will never step foot in your library, but they will look at your webpage. So, they're just using you to get to the databases. They're just going through. So make sure you're updating your content, create interactions, have a sign up for the email form, have help very clear on your site. All of those things that will help engage me when I go to your site and make me feel welcomed and that I'm included. And social media, use it as an engagement tool. That's what it's meant for. I know it's sometimes a little stressful because there's trolls out there, but post updates of services, great news. We're going to start being able to do this again. Post videos from within the library. With that news, that's always a great way to engage people, and offer live and recorded content, because I'm the worst at, I'm going to attend something live and then I get busy and I don't go, but I want to watch it. So I'm always encouraging people to put that recorded content up there and just interact. If someone comments on your post, like it, respond to them, something to let them know that you heard it. It wasn't a comment in a vacuum. We want to use this tech to reintroduce ourselves to the community or introduce ourselves. How can we do that digitally? How can we get ourselves out there? Are we doing mobile hotspots? Are we doing mobile bookmobiles that have Wi-Fi and Chromebooks available in them? There's so many opportunities with technology to get out into the communities these days. So a couple more tips for team communication and collaboration. Um, there's things like Slack, and I really encourage you to use them. They are really good. They're a software. You can use it on your computer, on your phone. You make a group, so it's a free, there's no charge. You create a group called, library staff, and everybody joins, and you can share documents, you can share, it's like an ongoing bulletin board. You can have conversations, you can have side conversations, you can have different sort of topics within the group. So maybe you have circulation, new book requests, reference stumpers. You can have all sorts of different stuff, and people can pop back and forth into different conversations, or you can have sort of private conversations within. It's a really centralized way to create communication, and especially if you have people who are working at home still, you have people at different locations, sort of really weird work schedules right now because you're trying to keep everybody a little bit apart. Yeah, it's not public record. That is an issue. I don't know. I know there are some softwares you can overlay onto social media. So you might have to look at something like that. Yeah. So that could be an issue at your library, or it could be a good thing at your library. Google Drive and OneDrive are also great ways to share and collaborate. So I just wanted to show, we're going to go back to live one more time into screen sharing. Hopefully I do this again correctly. So this is, I was in a meeting, and this was the greatest thing that I ever saw, and it was so cheap and easy to do for brainstorming. So they just put boxes all over the screen, and then they asked a question, and they had everybody, and they just gave the URL as a public URL. Everybody came in and just added stuff to the boxes. So almost like that Post-it note thing we do in brainstorming. And then they had a little tiny grid, and they asked people to cut and paste what they wrote into the grid. And it took about 20 minutes, so we're not going to do it today, but it was a really easy way to brainstorm. And brainstorming has been one of those challenges for me with online meetings. How do we all collaborate? I've tried where I'm typing the notes and things like that. So I have the URL right here, this bit.ly. You're welcome to come copy what I have and use it as your own slides for things. But it was a really great way to collaborate together with a group of people. And so I really encourage you, if you're doing team meetings and you're trying to brainstorm, that, free and easy to do. It was great. Project management tools are also a great way to use. And this, again, is a great way to connect with your team, but also, even if it's not a virtual team, in the long run, this is a great thing to use. So this is Trello here as an example, but Comanche, ClickUp, Podio, MeisterTask, there's a ton of different ones that do this. So I love this for teamwork. The most efficient committee I was ever on was a committee that used Kimberly's saying Microsoft Planner in our Office suite. Oh, okay, great. Microsoft has all these like hidden products that I don't find unless I know to look for them. Thank you for telling me about that one. I'll have to look at that after. So basically you put up an area, and then you put the different things that have to be done. You can assign them. Yep, group projects is another one. I'm trying to think. Google just launched a project manager software, and I can't think of the name right now, but I was playing with it yesterday. That does this as well. So, which explains why it kind of pushed Comanche a little bit out of their software. So I can assign these to each person, and I can give them due dates, and I can, and all of these work very similar. It's whatever works for you software-wise is the one to use. And I don't have anybody else in my group in this because it was just me. So I'm the only person to sign stuff, but you can change it. You can change members. So then the next time you get together, we've all agreed that security needed to be done by next week. So now I can say, okay, Bob, did you finish the security updates that you said you were going to do for our next meeting? And we just go through the Comanche. It helps keep everybody on track, which is a really big, Clarissa saying feed camp. Yep, that's another good one. So you can do lots of lists, you can have lots of different boards, and you can move things off once they're completed, and you'll have a list of completed tasks. So you can look back and you can say, look how much we did in the past 6 months, and you can move forward. It's a really great way, especially if you have multiple people working on something, to keep everybody on track with deadlines. It's so important. Working at home, I can't stress security. It's all that's in the news right now, but security is a priority, and you really need to work with your IT departments to make sure that remote workers are being secure, because it's a scary time out there right now. So there's VPN software and there's remote desktop. Remote desktop really just gives me my desktop at work, and then I can do stuff. VPN is a private virtual network. Your library will decide which one they want you to use. Don't connect if you are using a remote desktop or VPN. Really make sure what you're using is a secure device. The same thing that my son does, whatever he's doing on the internet, is not the device I would use to connect to the library network. I would make sure I'm using probably a library specific device that's cleaned up and doesn't have my private stuff on it. Update your software, especially VPN. VPN software had huge issues at the beginning of the year, and I was reading about the amount of people who still have not updated their VPN software. Get rid of the admin users, clean it up. If you're not using it anymore, remove it from people's computers. Really make sure everything is up to date software-wise. Ransomware is, well, that's all we're talking about, right? Especially with concerning gas this week. It's a huge problem, and there's a huge uptick in the number of attacks. And it's so important that we do everything we can do to protect ourselves and our networks and our library networks. And sometimes it's our city network or our whole college campus that we could take down with one bad click. So updating software, operating systems, browsers, that's one of the number one things you can do to protect yourself, because these ransomware attacks hit vulnerabilities. So if a software has a known vulnerability, there's often a patch for it, which means it's closed and it won't affect you. So if you don't update your software, you're leaving yourself open to that. Have unique passwords. Your password should not be the same every place you go. Turn on two-step authentication. Really pay attention to phishing schemes. They're really on the rise. That's when you get an email that's, it says, your PayPal account may have been hacked, click here to update it. Some of them can be really targeted and very sophisticated. I know that I have almost clicked through a couple times. I got an email from somebody that I know that said, here's that Google Doc we've been working on. And I thought, what Google Doc? And I clicked on it. I did click on it. And then my login came up and I went, hold on, and closed it. And then ran scans, shut my computer down. And changed passwords and stuff like that. But it really freaked me out. So it's really easy to fall for phishing schemes, and even the most knowledgeable person can fall for them. So really be suspicious of emails in this day and age, and back up your computer. These ransomware attacks can't hurt. What hurts them is if you can't restore your network. You can't restore your files, because that's what they do. They lock down your files. They've not blocked your network. They've just locked down all the content. So if you have a good backup, their threats are meaningless, because you can just wipe out your network and put on the new one, replace it with an old version that wasn't hacked. Track your time. I can't stress this enough. I've started doing this and it's really made a difference in my life. It helps me connect because it helps me be more proficient and more useful with my time. I can see where my time is going, who I'm spending time with. When you talk to your supervisors, when you talk to your team, you can talk about what you did. Well, I spent 35% of my time yesterday was spent, or 3 hours was spent doing this. It took a lot longer than everybody thought. And you can kind of talk through that, and it really helps that communication. QR codes are always a fun way to connect. They are everywhere lately because of COVID, and I think that they've really crossed this boundary. My mother, who would have never looked at a QR code, now walks into a restaurant, scans the QR code, pulls up the menu. You can pay by QR code. You can order through QR codes. They give you really good stats as from the back end point of view as well, if you use the right one. So they're really good way to keep track of what's going on, and it's a really great way to tie something um, physical to digital content. Kimberly is adding QR codes to get vaccines here. That's a great idea. We want to remain touchless at the library, probably for a long time. I've been reading a lot about it, and I know personally I don't want to touch anything when I go in places anymore. So a touch screen just seems awful. So self-check on mobile devices, not just self-checks in general where I'm not having to interact with staff. You're going to see that stuff continue to grow because people are going to keep their distance for a while. Tools to help you. Grammarly is my best friend. Grammarly checks your grammar. It's not perfect, but it catches a lot of errors for me. Unfold and Canva do marketing stuff for you, and those are all great digital tools. So we've hit the end of the hour. I know some of you have to go places, and we talked about respecting time in the very beginning of this session, but I will stay on the line if you have questions. So don't feel like you can't answer your question. I can stay here as long as we need to. But that's the URL for the slides. I'm going to put that in the chat box. Oh, thank you, Christine.
Diana. Thank you, Diana, for an informative webinar this morning. As always, if you enjoyed this webinar, please be sure to check out our listserv and go to our website. I hope you all have an incredible rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Diana.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Taylor.